Welcome back to my garage. Last time we destroyed the reed valves, and by the looks of this spark plug, there's probably more stuff destroyed there. The ground electrode has been pushed in. Not a good sign. Nothing we can't fix though. Everything is made in-house now, except for the crank and pistons. But I've got more pistons, and I can easily order a new crank. I don't think there's anything wrong with the crank though. Not so sure about the piston, nor the head. The ring was kinda stuck. The dome has been pushed in by debris. Head didn't look too bad though. It's the parts from those reed valve bridges. That ring lad is much tighter than it's supposed to be now. The cylinder is fine, no damage at all, so that's great. Head has some slight damage, nothing I can't sand out. We'll leave some pits for detonation to possibly occur though, which isn't ideal, but I don't think we'll need to machine a new head. That's great. We will need to fix this though, it's still slipping. It's time to redesign the drive here completely. Taper lock or something. I think I'm going to move the ignition trigger to the crankshaft. Much easier to adjust rotary valve timing and ignition timing independent of each other. Then one of them can slip and not the other, and it's easier to diagnose what's going on. This is probably part of the reason for inconsistent readings. Did the reeds fail at the same time as these bridges, or did these bridges fail and that caused the reeds to fail? You can see how they're bent inwards like that. It's supported on this side, not in the middle. I guess my question is, can I use fiber reeds? Maybe they're not the problem. It's worth a shot. The worst thing that can happen is the reeds breaking, and these can't do much damage. Versus steel reeds, which can cause a lot of damage if they break. I'm asking a lot more of these reed valves than what they're really designed for. With my engine design, the transfers are almost as high as the exhaust port. And this can give me kind of a variable blowdown. These reeds won't open until cylinder pressure is lower than crankcase pressure. Which means if the cylinder needs more blowdown, this will stay shut. So the transfers won't open until the cylinder is below crankcase pressure. These reed valves will possibly see combustion. Keep in mind there's a bunch of fresh mix on the other side keeping them cooler. I can't see any heat damage here. We need to find out if the bridges giving out was our problem. I intend to machine new valves with much stiffer bridges. Quick note about making reed valves yourself. If you buy these sheets of carbon fiber, they're directional. The fibers go this way. It's much easier to bend the material in this direction versus this direction. They're meant to be run with the fibers going in this direction. They're probably much weaker in this direction. I've only got one of those extension nuts. I'll get another one tomorrow. Forgot to hit record. I cut a piece out of this thick-walled piece of tubing. I'm gonna weld it to the bushing sitting on the crank, and that'll be my crank trigger lobe. I won't tighten this up yet, it's easier to time it when the cylinder and head is in place.
astern, look the weather in the lee. Blow high, blow low, and so we sail away. I see a wreck to windward and a lofty ship to lee, a-sailing down along the coast of High Barbary. And hail her, O captain, he called over the side. Blow high, blow low, and so we sail away. Oh, why you a pirate or a man of war, he cried, a-sailing down along the coast of High Barbary. Oh, are you a pirate or a man of war, cried we. Blow high, blow low, and so we sail away. Oh no, I'm not a pirate, but a man of war, cried he, a-sailing down along the coast of High Barbary. Then back up your topsails and heave your vessel to. Blow high, blow low, and so we'll sail away. For we have got some letters to be carried home by you, a-sailing down along the coast of High Barbary.
While things are apart, I'm gonna enlarge this part of the exhaust duct and make a larger exhaust tub and shorter.
Broadside they fought along the main. Blow high, blow low, and so we sail away, until at last the frigate struck the pirates' master.
Cover is enlarged, and now I'm gonna make a new exhaust tub.
Listen, gun, no, we fought for hours 3. Blow high, blow low, and so we sail away. Their ship it was, their coffin, and their grave it was the sea.
That's the new exhaust tub. You can see it's quite a bit larger than the previous one. And this is even smaller because there's that exhaust tubing in there too. Fairly restrictive compared to this. There will be somewhat of a transition from high velocity low pressure to lower velocity higher pressure here. Could help a bit with pushing the atmosphere away, aiding outflow from here. Several people have suggested it, and I'm going to design a proper megaphone for it to aid outflow and blow down. As you saw, I pressed in a steel bushing in the pulley, and I made this threaded keyway thing. This is how I mounted the rotary valve to the crankshaft on the SPX engine, for those who's been following for a long while. I think this has a better chance of not slipping. I should have done this in the first place. As you've also seen, now the ignition trigger is moved to the crankshaft, so they're independent of each other. Not designing new reed blocks yet. I've actually ordered some V-force reeds, and they should arrive today. I'm going to try with those, and if they break, they break. They're plastic, and it won't damage the engine, probably. I'll have to do a little bit of cleanup on the head, and then we're ready to assemble as soon as the reeds arrive. V-force reeds have arrived. We'll see how well these will hold up. They're all plastic, so if they fail, hopefully nothing else will fail with them. They have this lip I need to cut off, and then it's time for assembly. I also just realized that I might have some clearance issues with the belt. I kind of thought that the belt was going straight out this way. Well, actually the crank is more like down here, and the belt is sitting more like this. There's an idler here though. We might have clearance. Easy enough to redesign and make another one of these. It is rubbing. I could move it here, like a millimeter and a half of clearance. That might be enough. I've set the crank to 15 degrees before top dead center with this timing tool. Now I'm gonna tighten the nut here and hope that bushing doesn't slip. I want it to get in the ballpark of 15 degrees. We're triggering closer to top dead center. I'll just move the trigger a little bit. Trigger moved. That should be about right. It's tempting to heat it up and start testing immediately, but I think we'll give it a few hours, maybe until tomorrow. Let all the sealants set up and cure and, you know, don't rush it. Until then, this is like Schrödinger's cat in that box. It's both the most powerful and a dead engine at the same time. We won't know until we observe it. We will observe it though. I might have to extend this stub exhaust because my exhaust extraction can't reach it without interfering with other stuff here. We'll see how it works. I've set the ignition timing to 15 degrees flatline, and I'm gonna shine a light on it and see where it's at and then adjust the base advance accordingly. So we'll have correct numbers this time. Then we'll start testing and see what breaks. Must be something going on with ignition timing. That's the only thing I've really changed since last time, except for that larger exhaust duct, but that shouldn't matter. The lobe I welded on isn't perfectly concentric with rotation. That might give me some false triggers or something. I'll true it up in the lathe and we'll see if that helps. I've reassembled and set the timing to what I think should be 15 degrees now. Let's see if it behaves differently. We're sitting at about 25 degrees now. Base advance is probably around 5 degrees. 5, and this would bring us up to 30 now. 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. We were sitting at 30. I'm running out of time for proper testing today. It doesn't matter for you, but I'll just start it and make sure everything works, and I'll see you tomorrow. I lost a little bit of the screen recording, which made it not so apparent that I adjusted the timing to be correct now. Base advance is at around 8 degrees, and now I've set a flat line 15 degrees. And we're gonna do this chart once again and see how it behaves. 25 degrees ignition advance, we're at about 20-22 horsepower. That could it be 30 we saw last time was probably not real yet. We need to add more boost. Let's pull the line from the wastegate and see what happens. I've decreased ignition timing to 20 degrees to be safer. Gotta pay close attention to the boost gauge now. Like that. It seems like 1.1-ish bar is the limit of the spring in this wastegate. I think it might be that's the limit of our drive ratio. The limit of the blower at this drive ratio. There's no point in changing the drive ratio if the dump valve is just compensating. Should find out if it is the drive ratio by removing this, but then I would also remove my failsafe against backfires. Not a great idea. I've checked my spring inventory. I haven't got anything in this same dimensions. It just happened to be that these fit perfectly in a recess in this membrane holder thing. And they fit in the clock. These are scooter variator springs. This is a 20 kilogram spring. This one is a stock Piaggio spring. And this is a stage 6 medium spring. Stiffest of the bunch. I don't know the rating though. Doesn't say on it. Stock spring is slightly stiffer than this one. We'll try with this first. I'm running out of time, so these runs with the blue Polini spring will be the end of this video. And I'll see you next time for more boost. See you next time. I couldn't help it, I had to add a little talk here. It's definitely capable of more boost, but at a higher RPM. If I want more boost at lower RPM, I need to decrease the drive ratio. We are running out of something at higher RPM. Might be intake area. I might need to shut the rotary valve later. Could explain the higher power readings when the valve was slipping. We'll experiment with that. Timing, maybe we need to decrease timing at higher RPM. I don't think we need to increase it. We're not seeing 30 horsepower yet, but we're seeing like 22 at 11,000 RPM, which is unheard of in 50cc. I want that kind of torque at like 15,000 RPM, then we're talking. Or like twice the torque at 10,000. Decrease the drive ratio and get higher boost at lower RPM, or start playing with the rotary valve and see if we can get higher power at higher RPM. Adjusting the rotary valve doesn't require any new parts. I think I'll start with that. See you next time. Having a hard time ending this video because there's no conclusive results. I've been thinking a lot though. Could be running out of flow area at higher RPM. As RPM rises, the fixed area of those pores are open for shorter and shorter time. The time area. Specific time area for a specific RPM point. That could be an issue. It's definitely a thing going on. With the rising boost at higher RPM, we could be introducing a lot more heat. The hotter air could contain less oxygen and thereby less power. The typical two-stroke mindset is so engraved in me. I'm so used to having to go to really high RPM for power. I don't think that's the case here though. I'm gonna see if we can increase torque at lower RPM. We're gonna revisit the 1-to-1 drive ratio for the blower. This is what I started with, and it did run rough. Then again, all those nylon parts were leaking. Let's try. Up until now, we've been pushing like 130 cc per revolution into a 50 cc cylinder. Now we're pushing 300 cc per revolution. Brute force. I'm I'm a little bit concerned about the outcome of this now. Did the opposite of exploding. 1 to 1, no go. 2.2 to 1, not enough. I'll make a smaller one of these, maybe 1.5 to 1 or something. The conclusion of this video is see you next time for more boost.